The Book of Trades. 1268 Anno Domini. Having been appointed provost to Paris, in 1261 with major responsibilities for justice, police and administration of the city, Etienne Boilly soon began to codify the regulations, customs and practices of the different corporations of craftsmen and workers having their trade in the capital of the French kingdom. Up to that point, most regulations were simply traditions handed down by word of mouth and therefore subject to the vagaries of memory or deliberate misinterpretation for personal gain. Boilly ordered the trade leaders, masters, jurors, arbitrators, or prud'hommes, to report to the Grand Châtelet, the seat of the Prévôt Royal Provost of Paris, to list the rights, privileges and requirements of their professions in order that a book of trades could be compiled from direct testimony of those involved. When written, this book identified in detail over 100 of the 150 crafts practiced within the walls of Paris and was presented to the king in 1268. Place and context. In the second half of the 1200s, Paris, founded 1,400 years earlier on the Ile de la Cité, Isle of the City, with the name of Lutetia, stood, with its 150,000 inhabitants, as the most populous city of the Christian world. Its location, on the banks of the River Seine, in the center of a prosperous agricultural region and at the crossroads of major thoroughfares, made it an important economic center. Its craftsmen and traders were grouped into guilds or corporations, who were jealous of their territory and their prerogatives. This led to legal and physical conflict. At the time, the courts were clogged with internecine claims and disputes, while on the streets there were public clashes and fights between sedentary residents and itinerant foreigners. Faced with the unrest, Louis IX decided that new regulations constituted the best form of pacification and control of all local activities, and the best way to ensure regular income through royal taxes. Etienne Boilly's regulations governed the French craftsmanship for the next 500 years. The Book of Trades is divided into 6 parts, the last including among others the potters and plitters, as the bricklayers, stonemasons, plasterers and mortarers. It is this section that is of interest to modern Freemasons. The Book of Trades, written 1268 Anno Domini. Etienne Boilly, the provost to Paris, to all the bourgeois and residents of Paris, and to all those who will come within the bounds of this same place, and who will be concerned, yes, on masons, stonemasons, plasterers and mortarers. These are the statutes and rules of the trade union of the master masons, plasterers and mortarers, made in honor of God. 1. In the city of Paris, anyone who wishes to be a mason may be one, provided he knows his trade and works according to the practices and customs of his profession, which are defined thus. 2. No one may have more than one apprentice in his business, and if he has one he must keep him for 6 years of service. He may well keep him beyond this time if the man is available, but for pay. If he keeps him less than 6 years he will be fined 20 Paris cents, payable to the chapel of St. Blaise, unless the apprentices are his own sons born to him in wedlock. 3. The mason may lawfully take a second apprentice on the same terms as he took the first one after the first one has completed 5 years. 4. The king who now rules, to whom may God grant long life, has entrusted, for as long as he may see fit, authority over all masons to Master William de Saint Pathieu. The said Master William swore in Paris in the Palace Lodge that he would protect the Guild of Masons as best he could, with honesty and justice to the poor as well as to the rich, to the weak as well as to the powerful, as long as the king wished him to serve the guild. Master William then gave his oath in the presence of the provost to Paris in the Grand Châtelet, Grand Châtelet. 5. Mortarers and plasterers come under the same conditions and organization as the masons. 6. The master who in the name of the king heads the Guild of Masons, mortarers and plasterers of Paris may have 2 apprentices only under the same conditions, as above stipulated. Should he have more apprentices he shall be fined as above stated. 7. Masons, Mortarers and plasterers may have as many helpers and servants in their business as they please as long as they do not show any of them the fine points of their craft. 8. All masons, mortarers and plasterers must swear to protect their craft by committing themselves to work loyally and well and to report to the master of the guild any case of infringement on the usage and customs of the craft which may come to their attention. 9. Masters with apprentices whose term of apprenticeship is fulfilled must come before the guild master and testify to the fact that their apprentice has accomplished his term faithfully and well, whereupon the guild master shall ask the apprentice to promise under oath to observe the practices and customs of the craft loyally and well. 10. No one may practice his craft after nuns 3 p.m. have been rung at Notre Dame on Saturdays, at any time during the year or after Vespers 6 p.m. are sung at Notre Dame unless he is about to close an arch or a stairwell, or is about to lay the last stones of a doorway leading to the street. Should anyone work beyond these hours, with the exception of the above indicated or similar work that cannot be postponed, he must pay a fine of 4 deniers, a small coin worth about 1 penny, to the guild master, and the guild master may take away the tools of him who repeats the offence. 11. Mortarers and plasterers are under the jurisdiction of the master who, in the name of the king, heads the above-mentioned guild. 12. If a plasterer delivers plaster for use by anyone, the mason who is employed by him to whom the plaster is sent is under oath to watch that the measure be right and honest. If he's in doubt, he must remeasure it or have it measured before his eyes. If he finds the measure to be wrong, the plasterer has to pay a fine of 5 sous, 2 sous to the above-mentioned chapel of St. Blaise, 2 sous to the guild master, and 12 deniers to him who will have measured the plaster. It must, however, be proven that the same amount of plaster was missing from every donkey load delivered for the specific job as was missing from the sack which has been measured. 1 sack load by itself cannot be measured. 13. Nobody may be a plasterer in Paris unless he pays 5 Paris sous to the appointed guild master. After having paid, he must promise under oath not to mix any other material with the plaster and to give good and honest measure. 14. If a plasterer mixes material with his plaster which should not be used, he must pay a fine of 5 sous to the guild master every time he repeats the offence. If the plasterer makes a habit of cheating and does not improve or repent, the guild master may suspend him from the craft. And if the plasterer will not obey the guild master, the latter must inform the provost of Paris, who must in turn force the plasterer to abandon the craft. 15. Mortarers must promise under oath and in the presence of the guild master and other masters of the craft that they will not make mortar of other than good binding material, and, should they make it of other material so that the mortar does not set while the stones are being placed, the structure must be undone and a fine of 4 deniers must be paid to the master of the guild. 16. Mortarers may not take on an apprentice for less than 6 years of service and 100 Paris sous to teach him. 17. With the king's authorization, the guild master has jurisdiction over minor infringements and fines of masons, plasterers and mortarers and their helpers and their apprentices. Furthermore, he has jurisdiction over the enterprises of their trade, over unauthorized builders and over claims, with the exception of property claims. 18. Should anyone from the above-mentioned crafts, when summoned before the guild master, fail to obey, the fine to be paid to the said master is set at 4 deniers. If he appears on the designated day and is guilty, he makes a pledge, and if he does not pay within the designated time, he has to pay an additional fine of 4 deniers to the guild master. If he denies any wrongdoing but is found to be at fault, he also pays 4 deniers to the guild master. 19. The guild master may levy only 1 fine per quarrel. If the one who has to pay the fine is so furious and so beside himself that he refuses to obey the order of the master or to pay his fine, the master may bar him from the craft. 20. If anyone belonging to any of the above-mentioned crafts who has been excluded by order of the guild master but continues to work beyond the date of exclusion, The master may take away his tools until he has paid the fine. And if he resists with force, the guild master should inform the provost of Paris, who should put down his violence. 21. Masons and plasterers must do guard duty and pay the taxes and other dues that all other citizens of Paris owe the king. 22. Mortarers have been exempt from guard duty since the time of Charles Martel, as wise men have heard it said from father to son. 23. The appointed guild master is exempt from guard duty as reward for the services he renders as master of the guild. 24. Also exempt from guard duty are those who are over 60 years of age, and whose wife is in bed for as long as she is there, provided they inform the overseer of the guard appointed by the king.